I hadn't done nothing to him, but he took it offensively and ran his mouth. Well, sometimes that alligator mouth writes a check that your canary ass has to cash, okay? Simple as that. But, you know, the Quad Cities is a great place to live. We've got things here that nobody else has got anywhere in the world. Most of you got squirrels, right? We got every color squirrel under the sun. You know why? The commanding officer, back after the Civil War, he had been down in Brazil and some of these countries, you know, because he'd been in the military. He brought those squirrels here originally, because in North America there was only gray squirrels. We've got albino ones, we got red ones, and you know, like right now, they're out. You see them because of the snow, they're eating, they'll open your garbage can, they'll get in your car. I mean, they're intelligent too. They're all, some of them's like pets. But speaking of pets, a buddy of mine, and this happened in Southern Illinois, he found one that was almost dead and nursed it to life, right? Would walk around with it on his shoulder. Okay, it's a pet, squirrel. And one of our other buddies walked up there one day and popped him right in the nose, that little squirrel. And he turned, now this is a guy that saved his life, fed him for years, grabbed him by the earlobe, chewed his earlobe off. These are animals. You know, he had got hurt, and that was the closest thing to him. And that's what he did. And deformed that guy for the rest of his life. You know, he was 14, 15 years old. But, you know, when you're down south, you find your own pets, whatever you want to play with or whatever. You're told not to because they're animals. But the Quad Cities is a wonderful place to live, okay? That's why most of us are here. We're not here, you know, forced to be here. We're here by choice. You can leave. You know, majority of people in the room are senior citizens. Probably wish they were in Arizona or California like her better half. He called me yesterday, Michael. He's in California, and I think he'll be back next week, won't he? After Thanksgiving.
Yeah, if he decides to come back.
Yeah, but he's a good friend of mine, and the young man sitting there, he's a good friend of mine. He sits on the county board, the one in front of you. Yeah, so if you got any questions about county government, that's the infamous Westfall, Mr. Westfall, okay?
Congratulations on getting reelected, Bob.
And he did get reelected, and to show you how people try to play games, when he first came on the county board, the county board chairman sit him right beside me, thinking, okay, these guys are going to go. Oh yeah, they're going to go to it. You know, he knew Bob, he knew me. How many years ago was that, Bob? 4 years ago.
Only 4 years, it seems a lifetime.
And we are good friends to this day, and we laugh and giggle about different stuff all the time. We call each other. It ain't got to do, and he is a Republican, and I'm a Democrat, but we are friends. Why?
Of course.
Why not? You know, but we had a good time until I retired or whatever, and we still have a good time. You know, we'll go out and have a beer or two together and, you know, laugh and giggle about what's going on and this, that, and other. But that's what life's about. You know,
He tells it as it is.
Oh, yeah.
No bull Bob.
No bull Bob.
Oh, is that his nickname? I didn't know that. I'll remember. A few things.
A lot of things.
But are there any questions about the 108th? I've tried to cover as much of it.
About the pictures.
Okay, the pictures that Jim handed out, I think you had, what, 38 of them?
Something like that.
Yeah.
I didn't remember the count.
Yeah, those are pictures of men that were in, as much of pictures of men that were in the 108th U.S. Colored Troops that were stationed here. Are there any other questions?
I just have a statement to make.
Yes.
You said that the slaves really didn't take the family name of the plantation owners. This is 150 years ago, so don't blame me for it, but my family outside Petersburg
Uh-huh.
had one of the largest slaveholders in Virginia. And when I did some research on the Confederate troops and also the U.S. colored troops, and there were a couple in the U.S. colored troops, actually the 56th out of Massachusetts
Okay.
with the last name Pickard. So they had, in that instance, they did take the slaveholders.
Okay. Yep. And some of them did, okay? Especially the ones that were related to the plantation owners. You want to have that name because that's power and some money too. But like with our family, when the Civil War was over, these plantations broke up. Some of these mammies had 20, 25 kids. So they sat down and they picked a family name. Talk about people can't read or write, but they picked a family name and say you and 4 or 5 of your brothers and sisters decided you want to go to California. Now you're in Clifton, Tennessee. That's where my family came from, off the plantation there. So 4 or 5 of you head to California. You have no idea how far California is, and you're walking and you're barefoot, okay? So you might get to Oklahoma or Denver. Chances are you never get to California, but you went that direction. 4 or 5 more went to New York. 4 or 5 more went to Chicago. Usually the youngest ones and the oldest ones stayed there on the plantation with the mother. And everybody said, we're coming back, okay, for reunions and this, that, and other. Depending upon how your name is pronounced and spelled is how when they did the census, they wrote it down. You couldn't write your name down, right? You don't know how to read or write. The census takers, if you look at some of those census books, everything's just alike because the same person wrote it all out. So, like my name, Mayberry, if you go to New York City, it's pronounced Mayberry. All run together. Here in the Midwest, you pronounce the syllables. There's like 6 different ways that our name is spelled out. But they
From
all,
the pronunciation.
right, they all relate back to our family.
So the ones in New York could be M-A-B-R-Y.
Yeah, or M-A-B-R-Y or M-A-Y-B-E. You know, there's
Right.
different variations, but it boils back down. On my mother's side of the family, she was a good one. And these stories that you hear that are handed down, when I was doing our family history, I went to my Aunt Stella, who was in her 90s and was still sharp, and I video retaped and took notes and asked her all about our family and how my great-grandfather got his name on the plantation. And you had to have, you know, permission to do things. You just didn't do whatever you wanted to. He wanted to marry my great-grandmother, so he had to go get permission. And that's when he and her got their last name. Before that, his name was Bill. Period. You didn't have no last name. You don't get to identify. Okay? When you start getting the last name and this, that, and the other, it takes away from the plantation theory. His name was Goodman, and supposedly the plantation owner, Uncle Billy Bryant, named him Goodman because he was such a good man and a hard worker. That's how,
Interesting.
yeah, you know, and you listen to these stories, do you believe them? Why should your family be lying to you?
How do you trace your genealogy when you've got names made up like that?
Well, you can trace them back to the plantations or whatever. One of the biggest stories or lies ever told was Roots by Alex Haley.
Yeah.
You know, how you want to figure out what tribe you came from over in Africa? You go over there and pay them off to say that. Sounds good as made for TV, right? Up
Makes you
until
money.
recently,
Makes you a lot of money.
yeah, up until recently, with DNA and that, you had no idea where you came from in Africa. But the biggest thing that came out was President Obama during his first run for president, they proved that him and the Bush family were related, had the same DNA. What? You can do it with DNA, it doesn't lie.
Right.
So,
You can go back, if you have a DNA run, everybody in this room will be located originally someplace in Africa.
Right, well, yeah, right,
that's where,
right.
And then
Garden
it depends-
Beach
from
and
there,
that
it
started
depends on
out.
how they spread it, how that line spread out.
right.
Virgil and Brooks, Alex Hanley wrote about how he was trying to trace one member of his family that was always called the African. What was the rest of the family, Swedes?
Could've You're asking the wrong one, I don't know. But you know,
I mean, this one ancestor was known as the African, and what was the whole family?
I wish I could answer that question for you, I can't.
I'm guessing they were Africans too.
Yeah. Well, you know, the black race in America has been the only race that has been named African, black, Negro, colored, and I brought an article. I've got a friend that's a journalist in South Carolina. He sent me that article, and you need to read it. The military last month said that the word Negro will no longer be used in the Army. What's that about? All of a sudden the government, which the military is, and that's just the Army, but will it go to the other branches? Sure it will. So they'll go in and erase all that in all of these books. So now you can not be a Negro, even though you're in the military, and we know in the military, if you go against them, you get court-martialed. But there's an article over there. I never seen that in our paper at all. This friend of mine, he sent it to me, and he said, look at this here. I read it. I said, don't sound quite right, but what can you do about it? Object, you know, end up in the brig. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming out, and I want to thank Jim for asking me to come tonight. I hope you learned something. That's what life's about, information and communication.
Yeah.